Sometimes, one simple question can open a door to someone's hidden pain. Welcome to Kindnesstale, the home of real stories that touch the heart and remind us why kindness still matters. If you believe a small act of care can change a life, subscribe now, turn on the bell, and stay with us until the end of this journey, because today's story is one you will feel long after the screen fades to black. Rain had fallen since morning, painting the streets of Maplewood in silver reflections. By evening, the sky hung low and the town looked like a photograph forgotten in time. Inside a small corner store, the flicker of fluorescent lights bounced off the windows. Behind the counter stood a young cashier named Lily, her name tag barely holding to her uniform. Her face was pale, her smile gentle, but her hands, they trembled. The scanner beeped in uneven rhythms, as if mirroring the uncertainty in her breath. Daniel Harper pushed his cart forward. He was in his early 30s, broad-shouldered, his eyes kind but tired. Beside him skipped his little girl, Emma, 6 years old and full of light. Her tiny boots splashed water from the mat onto the floor. "Careful, sweetheart," Daniel laughed. Emma giggled and held up a chocolate bar. "Daddy said I can have this because I got an A in reading." Lily's smile grew a bit brighter. "That's wonderful, Emma. You must be so proud." "I am," the girl chirped, placing the chocolate on the counter like a trophy. Daniel began unloading groceries: milk, bread, a box of mac and cheese, the simple things of a simple life. Then he noticed it. The tremor in Lily's fingers grew worse. The barcode scanner slipped from her grip, hit the counter, and clattered to the floor. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she murmured, bending to pick it up. Daniel instinctively helped her. "Hey, don't worry about it." Their eyes met for a moment, his steady, hers uneasy. He saw something there. Exhaustion that ran deeper than just a long shift. When she stood again, her voice was unsteady. "It's just been a long day," she said softly. Daniel nodded but didn't believe it. Emma tilted her head. "Miss Lily, are you cold? You're shaking." Lily froze, then forced a smile for the child. "No, sweetie, I'm fine." But she wasn't. And Daniel knew it. He had seen that kind of fine before. As she bagged the groceries, he tried to make his voice casual. "Long day, huh? You get many people like us coming in during the rain?" She shrugged slightly. "Mostly the same faces. You and Emma are nice ones, though." Daniel smiled. "Well, we try." She handed him the receipt, her hand still shaking so much he almost reached out to steady it. "You sure you're okay?" he asked quietly. Her eyes flashed with something between fear and desperation. Then she looked away. "I promise I'm fine." The words sounded rehearsed. He wanted to ask more, but a line was forming behind him. So he just said, "Take care of yourself, Lily," and walked out into the rain. The automatic doors closed behind him with a hiss, but the image of her trembling hands stayed in his mind like a shadow. He buckled Emma into her car seat, but his thoughts drifted elsewhere. He remembered the way his wife Sarah used to hide her own shaking hands when she was sick, how she'd say she was fine even when she wasn't. She had passed away 2 years ago, and sometimes the memory still hit him like a wave. Now seeing Lily's trembling hands, he felt that old ache return. He started the engine, rain tapping against the windshield in soft rhythm. From the back seat, Emma's voice broke the silence. "Daddy, why was Miss Lily shaking?" Daniel took a deep breath. "Maybe she's just tired, sweetheart." Emma looked out the window, her reflection blending with the raindrops. "I think she's sad," she said quietly. Daniel glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Kids always noticed what adults missed. "Maybe you're right," he whispered. The drive home was quiet. The streetlights cast long shadows through the mist, and the sound of rain on the roof became the soundtrack of his thoughts. He kept seeing Lily's face, that forced smile, the trembling fingers, the look in her eyes that seemed to say, "Please notice me, but don't ask." When they reached home, Emma was already half asleep. Daniel carried her to bed, tucked her in, and stood for a moment watching her breathe. He wondered how many people in this world walked around with shaking hands and forced smiles, waiting for someone to notice. That night he sat by the window listening to the rain and made a quiet promise to himself. Next Thursday he would ask her again, and this time he would really listen. The next Thursday came faster than Daniel expected. The week had passed in a blur of work, homework, and the quiet rhythm of single-parent life. But through it all, one image kept returning: Lily's trembling hands. By evening, the rain was gone, replaced by a golden sunset that painted the town in soft light. Emma had fallen asleep early in the car seat, her head resting against her stuffed bunny. Daniel hesitated for a moment, watching her sleep. He could have just gone home, but something deep inside told him he needed to see Lily again. So he stepped out of the car, closed the door softly, and walked into the store. The bell above the entrance jingled, that small, familiar sound that echoed memories. Inside, everything looked the same. The shelves were lined neatly. The quiet hum of refrigerators filled the air. And behind the counter, there she was, Lily. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, and her uniform looked slightly faded, like it had been washed too many times. She smiled when she saw him, but the smile was smaller this time, weaker, like it took effort. "Hey, you're back," she said softly. "Yeah," Daniel replied, setting a few groceries on the counter. "Can't survive without Emma's favorite cereal." Lily chuckled faintly. "She's a cute kid." "She likes you," he said. Lily looked down shyly. "Kids usually do, until they grow up and realize the world's not so kind." Daniel frowned slightly. "That's a heavy thing to say." She shrugged, pretending to scan the items faster than she needed to. "Guess I'm just tired." There it was again. That word. Tired. He noticed her sleeves this time. Long. Pulled all the way down to her wrists, even though the weather outside was warm. As she reached for the bag, the fabric slid just enough for him to see a faint red mark along her skin. It wasn't deep, but it was there, and his heart ached. She caught him looking and quickly pulled the sleeve down again, her face tightening. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he said softly, "You don't look like someone who's just tired." Her scanning slowed. The red light of the barcode reader flashed against her pale skin. Finally, she sighed. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said gently, "I've seen that look before. Someone pretending everything's fine when it's not." Lily looked up sharply, eyes glistening with something between anger and pain. "Why do you care?" she whispered. Daniel's voice softened. "Because maybe no one else does." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she laughed, but it wasn't happy. "People say they care," she said bitterly. "But when you actually start to fall apart, they disappear. Nobody wants to deal with a broken person." Daniel shook his head. "That's not true, isn't it?" she asked. "I've seen it over and over. My friend stopped calling. My dad left when I was a kid. And now it's just me, trying to hold everything together." Her hands were trembling again, the scanner slipping slightly from her grip. Daniel gently reached over, steadying it with his own hand for a brief moment. "Hey," he said quietly. "You don't have to hold it together all the time." Lily froze, her breath catching in her throat. Her eyes filled instantly, the tears gathering faster than she could blink them away. "You don't even know me," she said weakly. He nodded. "You're right, I don't. But I know what pain looks like." Her eyes softened. "You've lost someone, haven't you?" Daniel's throat tightened. "Yeah, my wife, 2 years ago." Lily's lips parted slightly, guilt flashing across her face. "I'm so sorry." He shook his head. "Don't be. I just wish someone had noticed sooner how much she was hurting." For a moment, the store was silent, the world narrowing to two people connected by invisible grief. Then, trying to lighten the moment, Daniel said softly, "If you ever need to talk, I'm usually around. I make bad coffee, but I'm a decent listener. A fragile smile appeared on her lips. You'd really listen? I would. She nodded slowly, whispering, You're one of the few who even asked. Daniel smiled sadly. Then I'm glad I did. He paid for the groceries, but before leaving, he said one more thing. Lily, take care of yourself. Please. When he turned toward the door, she said quietly behind him, Daniel. Thank you. He looked back. She was smiling again, but this time it wasn't forced. It was small, trembling, but real. As he stepped outside into the cool evening air, he realized something. Maybe she didn't need saving. Maybe she just needed to know someone cared enough to ask. He walked back to his car, sat in silence for a moment, then looked at Emma sleeping peacefully in the back seat. He brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered to himself, Sometimes kindness doesn't need to fix anything. It just needs to show up. He started the car, but his thoughts stayed with Lily, the cashier with shaking hands and a smile that tried too hard to hide the storm within. A week passed, the air had turned colder, and the maple trees outside Daniel's apartment had begun to shed their golden leaves. He found himself thinking about Lily more than he expected, about her fragile smile, her shaking hands, the way her voice trembled when she said, You don't even know me. He had seen pain before in his wife, in himself, but something about Lily felt different. It wasn't just sadness, it was a quiet, constant kind of breaking, and he couldn't ignore it anymore, so, on Thursday evening, Daniel returned to the store early, before the evening rush. The bell above the door chimed softly as he stepped inside. The aisles were mostly empty. The faint smell of coffee from the front counter lingered in the air. Lily was there, restocking soup cans on the bottom shelf. Her movements were slow and careful, but her eyes looked heavier, red around the edges, like she hadn't slept in days. Daniel approached quietly. Hey, he said gently. Need a hand? She jumped slightly, startled, then smiled when she saw him. Oh, hey, Daniel. You scared me. Sorry about that, he said, kneeling down to help pick up a few cans that had rolled away. I didn't mean to startle you. Just figured you might use a second pair of hands. She laughed softly, but it faded quickly. Thanks, but I'm used to doing things alone. He looked at her carefully. Maybe you shouldn't have to be. For a moment, she didn't respond. Then with a quiet sigh, she whispered, You're kind. Most people don't even notice when someone's drowning right in front of them. Daniel's tone softened. I noticed that made her pause. She glanced up, and for the first time her eyes didn't hide. There was no fake smile, no pretense, just raw pain. Her voice shook. You really want to know why my hands shake? He nodded slowly. Only if you want to tell me. She took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around a can until her knuckles went white. My mom's in the hospital, she began quietly. She's all I have. She's been sick for a year. Stage 4 cancer. Daniel's heart dropped. Lily's voice broke as she continued. She used to work 2 jobs to raise me alone. Now I'm the one working double shifts to keep her treatments going, but she hesitated, fighting back tears. They told me last week it's not working anymore. Daniel swallowed hard, emotion tightening in his throat. Lily, he whispered, but she shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. I can't afford to lose her. I can't even afford to grieve her. Every time I think about it, Her hands began to tremble violently. She clasped them together as if trying to hide the shaking. Sometimes I can't eat. Sometimes I forget to sleep. My hands shake because I'm scared, Daniel. Scared I'll walk into her hospital room one day and she won't wake up. Her voice cracked completely. I'm terrified, and I'm so tired. For a moment, Daniel didn't know what to say. He could feel the heaviness of her words pressing against his own chest, stirring memories of hospital rooms, quiet monitors, and final goodbyes. He took a small breath, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. From it, he took a small business card, nothing fancy, just his name and number. He handed it to her. If you ever need anything, he said softly, call me. Day or night, doesn't matter what it is, when food, a ride, someone to talk to. Just call. She blinked, tears catching the light. Why are you being so nice to me? He smiled sadly. Because I know what it's like to lose someone, And to wish you'd had someone beside you when it happened. Her eyes widened slightly. You lost someone too? He nodded slowly. My wife, Sarah. 2 years ago. Lily's expression softened with instant understanding. I'm so sorry. He smiled gently. Don't be, I know how hard it is when the world keeps moving and you're stuck trying to breathe through the pain. For a long time, they sat there on the cold supermarket floor, surrounded by shelves of soup cans and silence. No customers, no noise. Just two people, broken in different ways, finding quiet comfort and honesty. After a while, Lily took the card with trembling fingers. Her voice was small, almost like a child's. Thank you, Daniel, really. He nodded, rising slowly. You don't have to thank me. Just promise me one thing. She looked up, eyes glossy. What? If it ever gets too heavy, don't carry it alone. Her lip trembled as she whispered, Okay. As Daniel walked toward the door, she called softly, Hey, Daniel. He turned. Her eyes met his and she said the words quietly, but they carried a lifetime of emotion. You're the first person who's asked how I really am. He smiled faintly, nodding once before leaving the store. When he stepped outside, the cold wind brushed against his face. For the first time in years, he felt something shift inside him. Not sadness, but purpose. He realized that sometimes kindness didn't heal everything, but it could keep someone from breaking completely. That night, Daniel drove home slowly. The roads were empty, the stars faint, but as he pulled into his driveway, he looked up at the sky and whispered a quiet prayer, not for himself this time, but for the girl with shaking hands who had finally told her truth. 3 nights later, just after midnight, Daniel's phone began to ring. The sound startled him awake. For a second, he thought it might be a wrong number, but then he saw the name glowing on the screen. Lily. His stomach tightened instantly. He answered in a rush. Lily, what's wrong? On the other end, her voice was barely a whisper. She's gone, Daniel. My mom's gone. The silence that followed was deafening. He sat there for a moment, the weight of her words sinking deep into his chest. Then he said softly, Where are you? At the hospital, she breathed. I didn't know who else to call. I'm on my way, he said without hesitation. He pulled on a jacket, grabbed his keys, and hurried out into the cold. The world outside was quiet, the kind of quiet that follows tragedy. Rain had just begun to fall, light and steady as if even the sky was mourning with her. 20 minutes later, Daniel pulled into the hospital parking lot. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, cold and sterile. He spotted her immediately, sitting on a bench outside the entrance, her head in her hands. Her shoulders were shaking, and even from a distance, he could tell she wasn't crying softly. She was breaking. Daniel walked toward her slowly, then sat beside her without saying a word. For a moment, she didn't even look up. Then she whispered, voice trembling, I thought I was ready. I thought I'd said everything I needed to. But when she took her last breath, I realized nothing could ever prepare me for that silence. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He wanted to tell her he understood. He wanted to say the right words, but grief didn't need words and it needed presence. So, he simply reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. Lily leaned into him, her tears soaking through his sleeve, and Daniel just let her cry. Minutes turned into an hour. The rain kept falling. The world kept turning, and still they sat there, two souls connected by shared loss. Finally, when her sobs began to slow, Daniel said softly, You don't have to be strong right now. You just have to breathe. She nodded weakly. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. He looked at her gently. You start small. You get up tomorrow. You eat something. You remember that she loved you more than anything in the world. And one day, when you're ready, you live in a way that would make her proud. Lily wiped her tears, her voice cracking. It hurt so much. I know, Daniel said, his own voice thick with emotion. But I promise, it won't always hurt this way. It changes. Slowly. It becomes part of you, but it stops controlling you. She looked at him, her eyes searching his. How did you do it? How did you survive losing your wife? Daniel took a long breath before answering. By remembering that love doesn't end with death. It just changes form. I see her in my daughter's smile, in the rain, in quiet moments like this. I think that's what love does. It finds a way to stay. Lily's tears spilled again, but this time they were softer, less desperate, more cleansing. Weeks passed. The store where Lily worked felt emptier without her, but Daniel heard from her every few days. Short calls, little updates. She was grieving, healing, learning to breathe again. And then one morning, he and Emma stopped by the hospital, not as visitors to a patient, but to the volunteer desk. Behind it, wearing a light blue hospital vest, stood Lily. She looked different, not because her pain was gone, but because she had learned how to carry it. Her hands still trembled when she saw them, but her smile was real this time. "Hey, you two," she said warmly. "I didn't think I'd see you here." Emma ran up and hugged her. "Miss Lily." "Daddy said you work here now." Lily laughed, her voice lighter. "I do. I help families who come in to visit loved ones. It feels right somehow." Daniel smiled. "I think your mom would be proud." Lily's eyes softened. "I hope so. I want to make her proud every single day." Emma pulled a chocolate bar from behind her back and handed it to Lily. "This is for you, because you were always nice to me." Lily laughed, eyes glistening. "Thank you, sweetheart." When she reached out to take it, her hands trembled again, but not from fear or hunger this time. It was emotion, gratitude, life. Daniel saw it too. He smiled quietly and said, "Looks like the shaking's still there." Lily laughed through tears. "Yeah, maybe that's just who I am now. But at least, it's not from pain anymore." She paused, looking up at him with a gentle smile. "Thank you, Daniel, for noticing, for caring, for asking." He nodded softly. "You don't need to thank me. Just promise you'll keep living." "I will," she whispered. "For her, and maybe for me too." That evening, as Daniel and Emma walked back to the car, the sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, the same color as hope reborn. Emma tugged at his hand. "Daddy?" "Yeah, sweetheart. I think Miss Lily's hands don't shake because she's sad anymore." Daniel smiled, glancing at the sky. "No, baby. They shake because she's strong now." And as they drove home, Daniel realized something. One small question, asked with kindness, had changed not just Lily's life, but his too, because sometimes healing doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from simply noticing the trembling hands of another soul and saying, "I see you. You're not alone." If this story touched your heart, remember, kindness doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it's a quiet moment, a gentle word, or a late-night drive to help someone who has lost their way. This has been Kindnesstale, where every story reminds us that compassion still exists. If you believe kindness can still change the world, subscribe, like, and share this story, because someone out there might need to hear it tonight.